So what made you still feel suicidal even though you had the love and support of your parents?
I don't know. For me, those feelings, they weren't, in my mind at the time, they weren't attached to my same-sex attraction. It was for me, the way I like explain depression to people now is it's not logical, really. And at that time, I would get into this whole of people don't love me, no one cares about me. And it wasn't because I was gay. It was just me. Just people don't like, just dig that hole deeper and deeper. And I wasn't able to like pull myself out of it. I wasn't able to like say to myself, oh, this is unrealistic. This is just your mind taking you away. And like,
but I feel like there was also, especially after it came out, a lot of social pressure, losing that friend group, having family members and friends say, you just need to have more faith.
Oh yeah, there was lots of expectations. And like, I don't tie it directly to the way people reacted, but without a doubt, I'm sure, well, it did definitely contribute. Like when I came out to my cousin, I can't remember how exactly, but I asked her if she would come to my wedding, and she said, I don't know. And I was so close to her. Like, she was one of my best friends. And when she said, I don't know if you'll come to my wedding, that, like, broke me. And since then, she's, like, talked to me, and she's like, of course I'll come to your wedding. I don't know what I was thinking. But, like, going back to one night specifically, it was a very bad night. Ended up in a car chase with one of my friends in the car behind me, and I was driving very frantically.
Why a car chase?
Because my friends were worried about me, and, like, they knew where I was, and they like tracked me down. And
They were worried you were going to hurt yourself?
Yeah, I was worried I was going to hurt myself. But when I was like racing away in the car, I wasn't like, I need to go to a cliff or anything like that. Like, I wasn't thinking. It was just, I don't want to be around people. Like,
But from the outside, it was like,
oh no,
he wants to get to a place where he can do harm to himself.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And that, yeah.
And we can't, yeah.
Yeah, and eventually the police pulled me over, and I remember I was sitting in the car, and by that time my mom had like joined the chase, and my headlights were on, and she runs up and kneels in front of the car.
Well, the policeman is like,
bawling.
stop running, because I'm booking it toward the car to my baby. And the policeman is standing there, and he's like, stop running. And he puts his hand on his gun holster, and I was like, oh, he thinks I'm going to attack him. Like, I need to stop. So I instantly dropped to my knees and put my hands in the air. Like, I promise I'm not. You're
like bawling this whole time. Like,
I had already
staring
been
at me in the car. That was like, oh, my actions affect other people.
I just remember I was
people
crying and
me.
Like I had my hands in the air, and I'm like yelling to the policeman, "That's my son! It's my son!" And then he let me up, but it was very dramatic. It was a very, very scary night.
Definitely a wake up.
And that's when you went to the hospital?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what temperature did you get? What's that?
One of the times.
Oh.
Yeah.
Was that the first time?
I think that would be
I don't know. I
don't think it was the first time.
I think 2 of the times after that / before were unnecessary, in my opinion. But no,
others had called for you? Or?
Yeah, exactly. But others around me were scared of my safety, which is completely fair. And they care about me, and they want to make sure I'm safe. And
so when just for those who are listening who may have a child or a loved one who they're worried about, talk about that decision to call and how that intervention can be helpful.
To call, what do you mean to call?
To call.
For me,
either to call 911 or to take someone to the emergency room. How do you deal with a loved one that you worry may be suicidal?
Well, I've had very close friends that have been suicidal, and this has happened multiple occasions where I've had to like call the police in order to keep them safe. And in my mindset, I'm like, I love you too much to lose you. You better not be doing anything. And it's interesting saying that because for some reason, when I'm in the situation of being depressed and like wanting to hurt myself or wanting to do something, I'm not thinking about the people I love. And as weird as that sounds, like it's just me. I'm the only one that matters. And it was very selfish, but
I don't think it's selfish.
It's selfish looking back because I wasn't thinking about how it would affect other people around me. But it's not selfish because I wasn't thinking about it. Like it was just
I don't think it's a selfish act. I think you get into a headspace where it's impossible to think about what other people are thinking. The pain is so much and so
Exactly.
strong that all you can think is, I have to get out of this somehow. And if suicide is the way to end this pain, then that's what I will do. And a lot of times I think when someone's suicidal, there's this feeling of, I'm a burden to my family or my friends or whatever, and they would be better off without me, and they won't miss me anyway. And I think that's a very real feeling that is like, if I were to think that, I believe that thought. I believe that I am a burden and that people would be better off without me.
Right.
So I don't think it comes from a place of selfishness, just maybe despair and extreme sadness.
And so how did they help? When it was helpful, the behavioral specialists, the behavioral health unit, how was it helpful? What did they do that was helpful? Do they get you on meds? Do they have you see a psychiatrist, a psychologist?
I don't know at what point I got on Zoloft, but I talked my way out of the getting checked in 3 different times.
Okay.
Because
you never wanted to go.
Oh, no.
Okay. So
No.
what did end up helping you when you were suicidal, other than your parents' love?
I think saying other than your parents' love is not giving enough credit to how
Right.
they made me feel, and how I think in ending up in the emergency room, it wasn't so much being in the emergency room or what the specialist did. It was knowing people cared about me enough to put me there, and that they wanted me around. And obviously it happened multiple times, but I've seen one of my really close friends, he took his life, and his mom found him. And then I went over, and just seeing her pure loss and despair for not having her son, that really I wouldn't say it was a wake up call, but I'm I can't ever, 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 ever do this. Never, ever, ever. I care too much about the people in my life to do something that would hurt them in that way. And you have to get past the point of thinking. It's not just getting past the point of thinking, because it doesn't work like that, unfortunately. It's hard to explain, but just realizing that people want you here. And it's much, much, much easier said than done, especially when you're in that situation. And it's gotten to the point where you don't think about people.
Donna, what are you thinking and feeling? Anything else you want to add?
We have a close family member who also died by suicide. And I've seen the aftermath of that on his mom and siblings, and the ripple effect just I don't think it ever ends. And it's part of our reality every single day. And every single person who knew him would give anything to just be with him for one more minute. If I had known, every single one of us, if I had known the pain he was in, I would have run to him. Thank you. I don't know how there aren't words in the English language to describe the anguish of losing someone to suicide. And for the people who feel that that's their only alternative, there are no words to help convince them that their life has value, and that things might be really, really bad right now and painful, but but just like things can get really bad, things also get better. Like there's hope for something more and something better, and so that you can live a happy, good, healthy life.
But
Things
when
might suck right now, but that doesn't mean they always will. But also, like in a maybe selfish way, I think I don't think I can keep breathing if you're gone. I remember when my nephew passed away, I had to tell my kids. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I remember telling them in this phone conversation that I cannot survive your death. I cannot, and I wouldn't even want to. And I expressed my love and for them, hopefully in a way that they knew that their life, it has value and it's worth living, and I can't live without you. I can't.
But when you're in that hole, it's hard to see past your hole.
I know. I understand
you don't
that.
want to see.
I know.
You don't want to think about the people in your life because you're going through a lot.
Well, and yeah. I think the pain and that hole you're in, whatever, is so big and dark that you cannot see anything else.
Well, I have personally gotten to the point where I can see outside my hole, and when I get in those dark places, which I still do sometimes, I almost immediately oh, this isn't rational.
Yay!
Well, it's not so much rational because it's not irrational being in that place. It just is.
If I can just, first of all, I want to thank you both for your vulnerability, for sharing, such a sensitive, journey, your relationship, your love for each other, your vulnerability. This is the type of story that saves lives, I believe. So thank you for that. If I can just add a little bit, I've studied a little bit about this, done some research, and I've counseled lots of people. I see at least there being 3 kind of legs to the stool in terms of suicide and suicide prevention. We know from the research of Caitlin Ryan and the Family Acceptance Project coming out of California that LGBT youth are 8 times more likely to engage in risky sexual behavior, 8 times more likely to engage in drug use, and 3 times more likely to attempt suicide if they experience high levels of rejection from their family. So probably the most important leg in the 3-legged stool is just family acceptance. And so the Family Acceptance Project is a really important thing to learn about. There's a Mormon-themed pamphlet that you can read. You can reach out to Caitlin Ryan. You can go to your local Encircle house if you live in Salt Lake or Provo and learn more about the Family Acceptance Project. But that's crucial, that just like Michael said, that having parents that say, I love you no matter what, I adore you no matter what, I don't just tolerate you or accept you in spite of who you are. I embrace you because of who you are and I celebrate you. That's sort of key 1 to this equation. I think key 2 is that it's usually a social and a cultural and a religious dynamic that would make this be a problem. If kids were raised where it didn't matter if you were gay or straight, if they were allowed to date, have crushes when they were young and have dates, and everyone in their church and in their, school and all their friends and family were cool with it, it kind of wouldn't be a problem. So, religion, religious culture, church culture has to become more LGBT affirming. Fortunately, in the LDS context, we've made some important strides there. Part of that due to the Encircle House and activists and researchers and podcasters and bloggers. And, we've come a long way just in the past few years. And I'm grateful for that. But churches do have a real important part to play in either creating an environment where people would feel ashamed and feel dark and want to take their lives, or want to withhold or their love from their family members or friends, or even reject them. And they also have a huge role to play in building a culture and in a environment of love and safety and affirmation. So, we're going to continue calling on the Mormon Church and other conservative religious traditions to just become more and more, not just accepting, but embracing and celebratory of LGBT people and whatever choices they make.
There's a difference between accepting and tolerating.
Yeah, and embracing, right?
Yeah.
And celebrating.
And nurturing.
And how can you embrace if you don't tolerate?
Right.
Or teach tolerance.
So no to rejection and bigotry, a step towards what's the minimum? That's just like tolerating, right? Mm-hmm. A step better is what?
I don't know.
Accepting and affirming.
Just love. There's no other way to put it than just love. Love should not have restrictions, boundaries, rules. You shouldn't love someone any less because of anything. You should just love them. And it just baffles me that some people don't love their kids enough to let them stay in the house if they're gay or if they're doing drugs or anything like that. It just...
I think most parents love their kids. They just don't know how to react to this new information. Right. I think parents generally love their kids and would do anything for them. But this is something that in our religious tradition has been demonized, and the expectations are so high for Mormon kids, and we've been taught that if our kids do things that don't fit if they don't toe the line, that somehow it's okay to sever those relationships, or it might become necessary to sever those relationships, as Elder Christofferson would say. So I think that's just something that's taught. And
quote.
So, yeah.
So, Michael, the third leg of the stool is going to be the work you do to heal and grow. And I'm going to save that for the end. But Donna, I'm going to ask you, how does a conservative, East Bench, Provo, Relief Society, Mormon mom move from total ignorance about LGBT issues, total fear, we got to hide this, we got to suppress it, this can't be my reality. How did you move from that to loving and embracing your son? What were the steps? And I mean religiously.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Lots of fasting, prayer, lots of crying. I think what changed it for me was that I've been taught my whole life that you choose God and Christ and the church above everything, even family. And I was 100% willing to do that until it was family. And I couldn't, it was never a thought in my head, he needs to move out. It was never a thought in my head, this cannot be, and we're going to fix it. Okay, I take that back. That's another story, which I'll get to. But
it was a thought in all of our heads that, if you had mentioned conversion therapy, I would have been down.
That makes me so sad.
I wanted to change.
You would have been willing to try conversion therapy.
I would not have been willing to do conversion therapy, although at the time I didn't even know what it was. But I feel certain that if I had heard about it, I would have said no.
Yeah, I'm sure you would too. But
But we were willing to do other things.
To change. Not willing. That's how much I wanted to change.
But we did try other things. But
my hand's biting.
Yeah, me too. At some point, I came across a pamphlet, the Family Acceptance Project, Caitlin Ryan, that you're talking about. And there's a lot of words in that pamphlet, but there's a lot of pictures. And some of the pictures are very stark, LGBT youth who are highly rejected by their families are 8 times more likely to have suicide ideation attempts and completions. And that scared me so bad. And then there's a list on one of the pages of highly rejecting behaviors, and on the other page, highly accepting behaviors. And I went down the list at holding my breath, like, oh gosh, what have I done? What damage have I done? And I went down the highly rejecting, and I'm like, okay, we haven't done any of those, but we also aren't doing these things, And I thought, there was that thought in my head, when my nephew passed away, I think that my thoughts of it's my fault were kind of irrational. But with Michael, I thought if he dies by suicide, without a doubt, it will be my fault. I'm his mom. I am the one person on the planet that loves him more than anyone else ever could or would or want to or is even capable of. And if he dies, it will be my fault. And so I read that pamphlet 3 or 4 different times, still thinking he's going to die of AIDS. I mean, I honestly, okay, here's the other thing. I saw no future for him. Except
once the church wasn't involved,
it was dark and
you didn't know.
Really, really scary. And he was going to an incredible therapist.
I only went once.
You went a couple times, but I went once. There was a time that there was one day he couldn't go, so I went instead. I'm like, listen, he can't come, but can I come?
Are we talking about Lisa?
Yeah.
I only went once.
You really?
Mm-hmm.
She's that amazing. Anyway,
Everything's solved.
I went to her and I said, listen, we have an hour. I need you to tell me everything I need to do to keep my son alive. And I wrote furiously for an hour everything she told me, wrote it down. And then I got to a point where I just like held up my phone to her mouth so that she could like say the words so that I could go home and this would be my new study manual, my new Bible. You know, I will do whatever it takes to keep him alive and everything else falls aside. Church, family, work, nothing else matters. When it comes down to life and death, nothing else matters. And I'm like, I am at a point where I don't care about anything else. All I want to do is keep my son alive. And there were days when I would go to wake him up for school and I would put my hand on the doorknob of his bedroom and I would brace myself thinking this might be the day that I find him passed away. And I don't know that there's any way to prepare yourself for something like that. You know, I have friends who've lost their children to suicide and I don't, there's no way to, I just wanted him to be alive. Like the future will take care of itself, but he has to be here so he can get to his future.
And I want to be alive.
I'm glad. So
what were some of the pieces of advice the therapist gave you? What were the key?
So glad you asked.
What were the key ones?
She said, you have to see a future for him where he can be happy. And then the next step is you have to articulate that to him. You have to help him see a future where he can be happy. And I had to really sit with that and think about that and change the way I thought about things. A gay wedding, like, no. And I went from that to the reality is that he will probably at some point get married to a man. Yeah. What will that look like? I mean, I don't know. What will that look like? Will I be there? Of course I will be at his wedding. I will. And I pictured myself at his wedding and I pictured myself dancing with his husband and crying with joy. And
is he cute?
Of course he is. He's got abs. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Anyway.
I'd rather have pecs.
Okay. Anyway. So
envisioning a future for him.
Yes, and then using that in my language with him, instead of it being all about church and expectations. I remember we were in the kitchen and I said to him, "I'm so excited to meet my grandkids. I can't wait till you bring my grandkids home." And he like did a double take, like, what? And I'm like, if you adopt or whatever. And he's like, whoa. It was like the first time he realized, I think, that I was thinking about these things. And I said, and I can't wait to meet your husband or whoever you bring home. Like, we're going to love whoever you bring home as much as we love you.
Well, in 6 months after it came out publicly, the guy that I'd kissed for the first time, I brought him over and my mom like hugged him, started talking to him, like said, "You're welcome here anytime."
He's one of us. There is no them and us. It's us. We're all us. And so picturing a future where he could be happy, articulating that and keeping that at the top of the conversation with him, and then saying to him, which was really hard at first, but saying to him, any future, which in my mind I had to mean that, any future where you're happy, which means you are sleeping with somebody new every single night, or you're getting married and, you're in a monogamous, whatever. It doesn't matter what the future is. Any future where you're happy.
I love how your worst nightmare is like sleeping with someone new every night.
I know.
You're like,
That's being a parent.
yeah.
Yeah. We always think the worst, whatever.
Yeah, that's being a Mormon.
No,
That's
it's
being a
not the
from
worst.
the
It's
worst.
not the worst.
That's what it's like to be a parent who's raised Mormon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dude, if
I
you're-
relate.
If you're having a good time, they're having a good time. Everyone's safe. No one's hurting anyone else. Do your thing.
That's not how we're raised.
Oh
Michael.
no, not at all. It took a second to get here. And
Second. But I have to say this, though, that any future where you're happy is better for me than suicide.
I had my aunt tell me, I don't know if it was a few months after my cousin took his life or if it was a few years. She told me, I don't care what you do. If you're a stripper, you're homeless, you're addicted to drugs, whatever, you're here and we need you here. And
Who said that?
Christine.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
So we've got about 5 minutes before you have to leave, Michael. So Donna,
We can push it a little bit.
What?
We can push
You
it.
can push it a little bit.
A little bit.
So Donna,
Like 15.
tell other key components of that the therapist told you or that were critical to your transformation and
Yes.
to helping him.
So the Family Acceptance Project,
Right.
an incredible therapist who
Get help. Get a therapist.
Get help.
A competent therapist.
yes, no conversion therapy.
Yeah, non-religious therapist.
Not just that, but an LGBT affirming.
Yeah,
who's
whether or not they're
educated
religious,
on
but-
matters of
Yes,
LGBT
I think that's critical.
affirmation and cultural competence around religiosity. There's actually,
Yeah.
if you Google LGBTQ Utah Therapist Guild, there's actually a guild of therapists who are LGBT affirming. Also, I'm sure that Encircle has a list of LGBT affirming
do.
therapists
We
that
do.
are affiliated with Encircle, and you can go to the Mormon Mental Health Association, and I'm pretty sure that the therapists listed under the Mormon Mental Health Association will be competent on matters of LGBTQ. But find an expert. Okay, keep going.
Definitely. And then we found Encircle, and that's a story that I can tell or not tell later. But I tried to get Michael to go to Encircle, but he wouldn't at first. But
No.
It was newish,
yeah,
right?
because you're like, it's too churchy.
Wasn't it newish?
Well,
It was very new.
so at the time I was the GSA president of our school, and it was the second year.
That's Gay Straight Alliance.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Gay Straight Alliance at our school, and this was the second year that the club existed. The first year, I think there were like 10, 15 members. The second year, we were the second largest club in the school compared to the Cookie Club.
Over 100, over 150, I think.
Yeah, there were a lot.
Wow,
So-
in Timpview.
Yeah, in Timpview.
That's amazing.
Not all LGBT, but
No, the majority of them
lot
weren't
of,
LGBT.
lot of allies.
We're allies,
Yeah, exactly.
lot of allies.
And in contrast to that, another like club in the school was, I don't remember, but it was like a church club.
Right.
It was interesting seeing the contrast, and there were several people that were in the church club and the GSA
Right.
because they love.
Nice.
So a lot of Mormon kids rallied around you and
Yes,
and
exactly.
other LGBT. That's
exactly.
nice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I had people. I definitely had people.
But when we first found Encircle, he was in the stage of he'd lost most of his like Orthodox friends, and had a few friends, some at Timpview, some not. But I got the sense that he felt really alone and isolated at school, and then another
I
kid.
wasn't.
I'm glad. Another
all.
kid at school came out to him, and he's the one who said, "Let's go to Encircle." And Michael's like, "All right." So they came to Encircle. I was already at Encircle volunteering. Okay,
Details don't matter.
this is my perception.
When before Encircle was even like
Open.
we like as a GSA, you, me, several people, we went and like cleaned up the
yeah.
abandoned house.
Yeah.
And then from then we were involved. To what extent varied, but from the beginning. And yeah.
But he'd gone to a friendship circle, which is like a support group of other LGBT teens, and this room was full of kids. There's like 30 of them. I remember walking in the door and going from thinking I am the only mom in Utah who has a gay kid. I'm the only Mormon mom in Utah who has a gay kid, and that brought a lot of isolation and other feelings and stuff. But to walk into this house that's full of life and activity, and there's cookies being made, and people are sitting at so much love, so much acceptance. It didn't matter what you look like, how you're presenting. everyone was loved and accepted and welcomed, and they knew that you are safe here. You will always be safe here. I walked in the door and just stood in the doorway, and I was like, I had no idea. And I just stood there and cried. I just cried in the doorway. I'm like, I didn't even get into the house all the way. I was in the doorway, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and what I recognized at the time as the Spirit, it was so strong. The feeling of love in that home, I've never felt anything like that.
Even the temple.
Even the temple. Mm-hmm. Anywhere, nowhere. He came down the stairs from the friendship circle, and he's laughing and joking with new kids that I've never seen before, never met, and they seem so happy and sweet, and there was such a sense of relief for me that he's found a place where he belongs. Like, he felt like he didn't belong at school, he felt like he didn't belong at home or church, but here he feels like he belongs, and there are other people who recognize his goodness and want to be around him. And I just, like, this huge sigh of relief. And I feel like that at that point, those three things, going to a competent therapist, and it only took 1 hour for me to, like, totally change the way I thought about things, the Family Acceptance Project and Encircle, those three things, honestly, I credit with saving his life. It changed the way I functioned in life, and it changed the amount of acceptance and love. I feel like that's what saved him. There were no attempts after that. Like, things got better. And
I fully believe that no one knew what I was going through. I'm the only one that's ever experienced this. This life is so hard. Like, I 110% believe that, because I literally knew 0 gay people. 0. Like, when I came out, it was all new territory.
Yeah.
So get educated, consult experts, find community and support.
Yes.
How about your religious views? Because there's this cognitive dissonance that builds as you've got this Orthodox Mormon mindset where the church says it's a sin to be gay, in the sense of, like, living.
It used to just
living an authentic gay life,
like,
right?
you could live an abstinent life, but if you're gay, it's a sin,
right?
That's changed over time. But
even now, the church is against gay people actually being gay. They can have the thoughts or the feelings, but they can't act on it, which basically means deny who you are. So for you, how do you deal with that cognitive dissonance, and what did you do with your religious beliefs? And we'll get to your full story later.
Sure.
But in terms of coming to support Michael and accept and love and embrace him, what did you have to do to your Mormon beliefs?
First of all, there was never a moment, there was never a millisecond where I entertained the idea of Michael not being part of my life, you know what I mean? Or part of our family, or whatever. So I had to wrap my beliefs and everything else around that, because that was never going to change. So I was talking with Steve Young one day at Encircle, and he's like, a lot of people ask me how I hold on to my religion and do work in the LGBT community at the same time. And he used this visual. He's like, I hold on to my LGBT loved ones and I hold on to my faith at the same time. Like, I don't have to choose. I can have both. He said, now the water in between is really muddy, but that will work itself out over time, whatever. And so that's, like, that visual helped me. And I'm like, yes, I'm going to hold on to my faith. Of course I am. Like, it's my faith. It's true. It's right. It's real. It's life. It's afterlife. It's everything. And then there's my kid, who I will never let go of, ever. And I knew even then, if it came right down to it and I had to choose, if someone or something made me choose, it's a no-brainer. Of course I'm going to choose Michael, of course. But at the time, I was like, I got this. We got this, And I remember, my language was different back then too, but I do remember saying things like, and please forgive me for my ignorance, but I'm going to be really real and say, I said to a few people, I recognize that I probably won't be with Michael in the eternities. And if that's the reality, then I'm going to spend every moment I can with him in this life. Because when he dies or I die, I'll never see him again. My views on that have changed drastically too, but that's where I was at the time. And I made sure people knew, like, when I finally could speak the words, I have a gay son, I made sure they also knew that my faith hasn't changed. Like I am all in. Like this is the true church, and nothing can sway me from that. So that's where I was.
So for at least a while, you were able to maintain Mormon beliefs and your support of your son.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And even when you were extremely LDS and Dad was extremely LDS, and when I was out, Katie's atheist, my sister, brothers Buddhist, other brothers Hindu, we could all sit down at a table together and love each other. I mean, yeah, there would be little arguments that were stupid, but then we would keep eating.
We always keep eating.
Keep eating.
Little family arguments.
Everyone keep eating.
Exactly. Push it under the rug. We're good at that.
No, well, I think we were good at discussing things, but there were times when it got a little tense, you know,
yeah.
we're like, we don't know where to go from here, so let's talk about Disneyland.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Clashing beliefs, but then you look past the beliefs and realize we love each other.
Yeah, we're people. I mean, I'm a human being and you're a human being, and I have deep value, and so do you. So whatever our beliefs and you know, lifestyles are, whatever, that's not as important as you being a valuable human being and me being a valuable human being. And we can look beyond all the other stuff, and that's what's most obvious and clear, and we just go from there.
So it really is, from a believing standpoint, and Christ should be a great model for this, you just choose love. Choose to love your kid.
Always. Oh, always.
And maybe even say, God will work out the theology, God will work out the judgment, the afterlife. My job as a parent right now, as a believing Mormon parent, is just to love and embrace my kid.
Exactly.
What about, there's like law of chastity stuff. You already addressed this, but like, what if there are parents that'll say, well, if he's living the law of chastity, I don't want to condone his behavior, so then I have to put up boundaries, or I don't want to meet his boyfriend, or I'll be condoning sexual behavior. Or, you know, there's that mindset of like, how do I show love without condoning behavior that I truly view as sinful?
I don't know how we dealt with that, to be honest. Because, I mean, to his face and in public and whatever, I was like, I accept and love my son, period. Behind closed doors, I was really, really worried. You know, I because of, you know, promiscuity and AIDS and, you know, all the horrible thoughts that I had, those were still there. They were very real. They just weren't a topic of conversation around Michael, you know, because we wanted.
You kept that to yourself.
We kept it to ourselves.
Those fears and worries you kept to yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
they were there.
Regardless it gets to a point where regardless if you condone behavior or agree, you don't really have a say. They're going to do it anyways.
It's called being an adult.
Yes, exactly. And you can't control.
Yeah.
And agency. And with our oldest, you know, when we were tender young parents, I would have given anything to control her agency. Anything. Like I would change, if it was legal and nobody would like go, what have you done? I would totally change her in the basement.
Who is this?
Not literally. My daughter, Katie.
Oh, right.
Like, yeah, metaphor.
Well,
but like I was all about controlling agency, you know, and then giving back a little bit as you make right choices.
And it came from a place of love because you wanted to control her, because the way that you're wanting to control her is the way that you found peace.
Yeah, and I wanted her to be happy, and I wanted to be with her in the eternities. So
I remember a lesson by Brent Topp. I took a class by Brent Topp at BYU, and it was about families or whatever. And he actually said that if he knew his daughter was going to go have premarital sex, he would feel justified in locking her in a room.
I'm glad I'm glad I'm not abnormal in that thought.
Well, chained to the basement is a little
similar.
intense.
Grounded forever. You're grounded until you're 30.
Yeah. But ultimately, if believing Mormon parents are seeking guidance on how they would deal with their gay child or lesbian child or queer child or whatever, just think about it. If they were not, you know, if they were straight but not Mormon, would you welcome their boyfriend or girlfriend if they were straight? Would you, you know, if they got married outside the temple, would you still support them having a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse?
I can say one thing.
It shouldn't be any different if they're gay, right? It's still...
No.
It shouldn't be, but unfortunately it is.
But I mean,
but it really shouldn't be.
I'm just trying to use appeal to logic that if, whether they're gay or straight, if they're choosing a different life beyond Mormonism, girlfriends, boyfriends, ultimate marriage, if you're going to support it if they're heterosexual, why should that be any different? In your mind, it's still sin either way. So support it. Just support it. Love them.
Love them.
and
Support
love will
their
always
decision.
win, right? Yeah.
And we had conversations, Steve and I, where we would go in the bathroom, turn on the water in the tub and the sink and the fan, and we would whisper
Extra.
quietly to ourselves, like very quietly, listen, you and I both know marriage is between a man and a woman. Neither one of us is for marriage equality. Like, duh. But we cannot speak those words outside of this bathroom. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm assuming that's when I was out.
yeah.
Because I remember we went to like a family thing and y'all were talking about how wrong it was and how far the country has gone because they were even thinking about
Doma
it.
was struck down, and I was like, oh gosh, this is the end of our civilization as we know it. We're going to get invaded by either China or Russia within the next 5 years, and we'll be enslaved, and then there will be genocide. And I mean,
Wow.
I have dark thoughts. But
Welcome to my mom thoughts.
So really quick, Michael, as we're kind of wrapping up this story, the third leg, I think, of sort of healthily coping with this issue is your own physical and mental health and social health and spiritual health. How did you get healthy and well, and what tips would you give LGBT, Mormon, and ex-Mormon youth for sort of some key pillars for your own rebound and thriving?
You know, everyone always says it gets better. I wouldn't say it gets better. I think life changes. You're going to have ups and downs regardless of what you believe, who you are, what color your skin is. And as long as you're not hurting yourself, anyone else, and you're having a good time and you're being safe, go for it. Like, your actions, if done right, should not hurt. I don't know how to word this.
Don't hurt yourself or others. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. And if someone
be healthy,
else,
be smart.
yeah, exactly. And I think most religions are founded in love, and it just gets skewed somewhere along the way. Time, honestly. Time.
Give it time.
And that's stupid, cliche, but time changes you and experiences change you, and being able to have those experiences. And like, if that night I hadn't gone to the emergency room, if I had killed myself, like, I wouldn't be here talking about this, and I wouldn't have a better day, and I wouldn't have the cute apartment I have right now. Like, and just because I have a nice apartment and I have lovely friends or anything like that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have those dark times. Like, those dark times are going to come and go, but you got to realize they're going to come and go.
what would you say to someone who's LGBT who doesn't have family support?
The thing is, you get to choose your family, and the gay community is open. Like, I have had the blessing that since leaving the church, one community, I have been welcomed into another community that's automatically accepting and loving. Like, oh, of course, like, we're
That's
here.
the gay
Like,
community?
yeah, I mean, it has its ups and downs depending on like the people, the groups, blah blah blah. It's a very
How
large
does
community.
a LGBT Mormon youth find, quote, the gay community? I mean, it's not just one community, but like, what would be some ways that they start finding friends and finding a community?
The internet, Encircle. I've met a lot of people like just through Instagram, honestly. Just being yourself, people will come to you. And even though it probably isn't going to seem like that for a second, because you've been hiding yourself for so long because you've been told it's wrong, when you're yourself, people are going to love you. And it may take time, but people will love you and appreciate you.
So are there like meetup groups? Are there Facebook groups? Are these just informal relationships that you forge over time?
I'm personally not one for like purely gay meeting groups or anything, but like there are several opportunities where that's presented to you. Like in Encircle, there are different activities. You can go to 18 plus club, and just because you go to a club or a bar doesn't mean you have to drink or anything like that. It's a social atmosphere.
There are also a lot of LGBT support type.
Yeah, you would know more than I do.
Affirmation is one.
There's Affirmation. There's North Star if you're into that. There's online groups. There's I'll Walk With You.
You just got to look.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not
Do
going
the
to find
work.
it if you don't look.
Make some friends.
If
I'm
you're-
sure you meet people through Tinder or other apps, and then they help introduce you to friends and community that way.
Exactly. I've been like going out. Like I would sneak into clubs at 16, like 18 plus clubs.
I do not condone that.
Yeah.
What are some of the best clubs out right now that you know?
Well, That's a good question.
Are there any good
Honestly, the gay clubs come and go in Salt Lake.
Okay.
It really depends.
Are there any good ones you kind of say are good right now?
Well, if you're
Or
over
hangout
21,
places.
Sun Trap, Liberty Park on Sundays is a really liberal place, honestly.
Okay.
And just very loving. I don't know. I'm not.
No, if there's one that comes to mind, that's great. If
Yeah,
not,
I
that's
can't think of one specifically.
okay. Any other tips to getting well? How are you doing now? What are the main components of your life right now? What things are bringing you joy and meaning and fulfillment? How are things going?
I'm really happy, and it's a mindset. It's you can look at life in a negative way or in a positive light. There's not really much else what you can do but change the way you look at something. You're not going to be able to control the people around you. You're not going to be able to control the way the sun sets. All you can do is how you look at the sunset. And being able to look at my life like an outside perspective and appreciate how good I've got it. Like, growing up in Provo, Utah, the most I had to worry about being gay is passive-aggressive looks, and the most someone yelling something rude at me. There are places in the world you can't breathe when you're gay. Like, you are killed, literally killed for being who you are. And you can't walk the street. I recently went to Italy, and the person I was with did not feel comfortable holding my hand because they were afraid. And the fact that I can hold someone's hand and, yeah, I still may get passive-aggressive looks. I can hold that person's hand and love them. And again, just perspective, the way you look at things. I have so many loved ones in my life, people that love me, and people aren't going to tell you every second of every single day that they love you. But they're there. Like, even if it's 10 years ago, I've had people message me saying, like, little things that I did that I didn't even think about, but I impacted their life. You can do the same thing by impacting other people's lives. It's just, you got to realize all you have is the way you look at things.
So I'm hearing you say, give it time. Mm-hmm. Find the family members and friends that love you and cling to them.
Yeah, and if you don't have those family members, your friends will become your family, and you won't have a place.
There's family of blood and family of choice, and sometimes those overlap and sometimes they don't. But find whatever family you can that will embrace and celebrate you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Make friends, be authentic, make community. Did you see a therapist? Did you do therapy at all? Like, just in terms of depression and anxiety? You're on Zoloft, so see a psychiatrist. If you need support that way, medication.
Yeah, I went to a therapist for, I think, like 2 months. I did not like her at all.
Okay.
And then I went to another therapist, Lisa. She was really kind and really great, but I only went once, and I haven't seen a therapist since.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk therapy hasn't been super useful, but the Zoloft has.
Yeah, the Zoloft, I haven't been off it in 4 years. I was actually talking to a friend previously about this. I'm like, I wonder what life would be like without it. I wonder if I need it right now. But life is waves.
But get medical support if
Oh yeah,
if you think it might be useful. You
Yeah,
can endorse
yes.
psychiatric help in your situation.
healthy psychiatric health.
Okay.
I would highly recommend not going to a religious therapist.
Right.
Because they're just, yeah,
Avoid
expectations.
a non-LGBT affirming therapist.
Exactly.
Okay. Have hope, be patient. And then you're saying practice gratitude, I hear you say. And then practice developing a resilient mindset that is flexible and is willing to reframe things.
Yeah, be open to change.
So
nothing ever happens the way you think it will happen or want it to happen. Rarely.
So what gets you excited about life now? What are the things that are really exciting for you? What are the things you're looking forward to?
Opportunity, and that life can change, and that I can literally do whatever I want with my life. I can go wherever I want. I can see whoever I want. I have the ability to do that and the option.
Do you have plans? Do you have hopes, dreams right now?
Trying to figure out what those are.
Okay.
Do
you work?
Yeah, I work at Target Optical.
Okay.
Ooh.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done school or you?
Yeah, I went to school for a year. I figured if I want to go to school and I want to, if anything, I'd be a therapist, honestly. That's what I've thought about, or somewhere in the psychology field. If I want to do that option is there later down the line. But right now I'm young.
He's done a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I've decided to make traveling a priority. And that's been really, really amazing and really helped me appreciate the world around me. Like I went to Stonewall for the 50th anniversary.
In New York?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. And just being able to see that 50 years ago the police were breaking up just a gay gathering, and now the police are protecting the streets while we have a gay gathering.
Love it.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
And it sounds like you feel okay living in Provo Orem, right?
I actually live in Salt Lake now.
Oh, is that a big thing? Was moving from Utah County to Salt Lake, what was that like for you?
Oh, massively different.
Why is that better?
Utah County is stuck in this little mindset, in this little bubble, and you will see hardly any diversity.
Okay.
And it's just expectations in Utah County that I personally don't like. Some people love it, and it's a beautiful place. I like being able to walk down the street and not worry about what people are thinking about me, which I feel like Utah County does a lot of the time, unfortunately.
So for you, moving to Salt Lake County was an important part of healing and growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've also lived in Portland and
getting out of Utah can be nice.
Oh yeah, yeah. Seeing other perspectives, other worlds, and again, like in Italy and London, like seeing the contrast of just the way you're treated, the way people see you. The world isn't a little box just because you can see it. There's so much out there. So much. And the fact that like I even thought for a moment of ending that because I didn't want to see outside of what I saw at the moment. It's hard to think about. Hard to think about that. I mean, I have no idea what happens when I die, and thinking about giving up all the experience I've had and all the experiences that are to come make me really sad. But I'm really glad I had those opportunities. And still have them.
Yeah. Knowing that not all religious or Mormon parents can get to the place that your mom has gotten, what can you possibly express to your mom knowing how supportive she's ended up being?
I don't think I can express it. Like it's not, I can't put my love for my mom into words. Like my mom is the most important person in my life because she has always loved me, always been there. She, like, no negative intentions, thoughts. Well, thoughts, everyone has negative thoughts, but you just always have love.
And what has that meant to you?
It's meant the world so much. The fact that I was suicidal when I had an accepting family, I don't even want to think about if my family hadn't accepted me. Like when I came out to my sister, she came out to me as bi, which I'm like, why did you not tell me that? How rude. And my brother said he would be disappointed in me if I married a woman. And my other brother, he had... when I came out to my other brother, he was like saying all sorts of like homophobic things. And then I like eventually like, you know what, Nathan, I'm gay. He like paused for a moment, looked up. At least you're not lactose intolerant.
And he was instantly on board.
Yeah, instantly.
Like super affirming.
Yeah. I've been very
Meaning
very
it doesn't
lucky.
matter to him.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. And I think that was his way of saying, oh, I don't care.
And Donna,
I've been very lucky.
what's it like to see your beautiful son now in front of you, feeling healthy and optimistic? What can you say to him?
My life feels complete when my kids are happy. You know that saying, I'm only as happy as my saddest kid, you know? The fact that he's living a happy life, I don't know. I don't worry about him. I spent a couple of years doing nothing but worrying about him. And he's happy. He's happy. And I'm happy because he's happy.
And when I came out at like 13 and to 16, did you ever think that you would get to the point where you wouldn't have to worry about me? Or that I would be happy?
No, there was no question that you couldn't be happy. I'm so glad that I was wrong. But yeah, it's just really, really good. I feel like my relationship with Michael has gotten even better, stronger, deeper. I don't know. I wonder if I kind of took my kids for granted. You know, they're here. I've got them. We're doing our thing. We do the day-to-day stuff. But I don't do that anymore. There's something so special and incredible. There's just not words. There's not words to describe this human being. He's just, gosh. And the fact that he's mine, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, I get to sit next to this person. Holy cow.
I'm pretty great.
Yeah, I love him.
Are you proud of him for what he's been through?
Very, very proud of him. Very proud of him. Talk about him all the time. All the time. So, yeah.
Well, what a beautiful and inspiring story. Lots of really beautiful comments. You guys will need to go visit the comments later on Facebook Live on the Mormon Stories Podcast Facebook page. Emmeline, I'll just read a couple. Emmeline writes, wonderful smile. I'm sure she means to both.
No, she means Michael,
but I think she might also mean Michael. She says, what a cute boy.
Yes.
Jennifer writes, thank you for sharing your story, Donna and Michael. Trent writes, I think travel opens people up and helps them shed biases better than anything else. Jay writes, I'm not getting anything done at work today. Thank you for doing this interview and being open and honest and showing how to love. Jenna writes, I'm shaking. This is such a powerful interview. Laura Lee writes, love is the answer.
Shout out to Laura Lee. Love that woman. Go ahead.
Yeah. Colleen writes, you may not have ever been student president, but look at how you took on leadership in areas really needed. Probably talking about the GSA. I guess if you had to choose between being president of the GSA and the student body.
Definitely GSA.
Anyway, just so many people are expressing their love. I believe interviews like this change lives and even save lives. And so on behalf of Leandra writes, the love of a mother needs no instructions. Great job, ma'am.
Oh, thank you.
Robin says, amazing people. Donna, I look up to you. Weston writes, makes me think of my mom. She has been pretty supportive of my decision to leave the church. And this transcends the LGBT stuff. Just there's so many parents that have a hard time loving their children if they leave the church, or spouses or grandparents or aunts and uncles or cousins. Like, there are other issues, even political differences that can divide us. I think the message of this interview transcends the LGBT issue, and it just goes to love. Love friends, love family, show support. And
Love has no boundaries.
love has no boundaries. I love it. So Donna and Michael Showalter, thank you so much for being willing to tell your story.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it means a lot. Any final words?
I don't know. Life changes. Life changes.
Is that a good thing or bad thing?
Neither.
It just is.
It just is.
The world's going to keep spinning.
You just need to make sure you're on it.
Yeah, exactly. Life's going to change. You never know what's going to happen until it happens.
Right.
Might as well be here to experience it.
I love it. Donna, any final words?
I think we need to give parents a lot more credit than we do. I think sometimes parents do things that on the outside don't seem very loving. You know, kicking a kid out if they're LGBT, that doesn't seem very loving. But I think it comes from a place of fear, deep fear, and that fear comes, I think, from love. So I think although sometimes actions don't they don't speak love, I think it comes from a place of love. So it's just learning to make our actions coincide with our feelings.
I learned to express love in a way that is perceived as loving by the others who we're trying to love.
Yes, make your love tangible. Don't just talk about love and throw the word around. Like, you do love. You don't just feel love, you know? That's why I started getting involved with Encircle, because Michael was struggling, and I thought, I can't just tell him I love him. That's not enough. Like, because he can believe me or not. You know, I know I love him, but does he know? Does he really know? And I'm like, what can I do to show him that I love him, you know? And so I started volunteering at Encircle as a tangible way, so that when he drove up with his friends and he saw me out working in the yard, I'm here, and I was there so that I could love him.
And so for those who want to check out Encircle, either in Provo, Salt Lake, and I think they're doing something in St. George, is that right?
Yeah, we're opening one in St. George.
What's the website for Encircle?
Encircletogether.org.
Okay.
So lots
Shout out
of ways to get involved.
Sorensen Larson, who's amazing.
Oh,
and
Stephanie.
Jacob Dunford, he just tuned in. And
I love Jacob so much.
all the amazing people at Encircle. You guys have helped change Utah,
Lives.
the
Change
church,
lives, save
so many
lives.
lives. And we'll talk about that. So thank you again, Michael and Donna, for your story. Michael, we're going to let you go to work.
Bye.
And listeners, don't go away. We are going to come back just in a few minutes on Facebook Live and on Mormon Stories for kind of we'll just say a part 3, because this interview ended up being 2 hours. We'll do a part 3 where we learn about how Orthodox, true believing, East Bench Provo Relief Society can end up leaving the church. And it's its own epic story. Donna's story is its own epic story. And so we're really excited to come back and hear that part of the story. So don't go away. Come back soon. Thanks, you guys. Oh, were you going to say something?
No. Bye-bye now.
I love it. All right, guys. We'll see you in a second. Check back for the next episode. Thanks again for joining us today on Mormon Stories.